Before you step into the activities of a new day, there is a spiritual protocol that determines the quality of outcomes you will experience. Days are not neutral. They respond to alignment, understanding, and spiritual intelligence. Many people rush into motion without mastery, into labor without light, and into decisions without discernment. The morning is a gate, and whoever controls the gate influences the flow of the day. If you engage the right spiritual principles before sunrise, you don't just start a day, you legislate results. What you do before the day begins decides whether the day will work for you or work against you. Before anything else moves in your day, something must be settled within your spirit. Life does not respond first to activity, it responds to alignment. Many people wake up and immediately submit themselves to pressure, notifications, responsibilities, and expectations without realizing that the human spirit, when not aligned, becomes a liability rather than an advantage. Spiritual alignment is the conscious act of positioning your inner man in harmony with God's will, God's order, and God's timing before engaging the physical realm. When alignment is missing, even sincere effort produces confusion, delay, and unnecessary struggle. You can be busy and still be disconnected, active and still be misaligned, moving fast and still be moving wrongly. Every day carries assignments, encounters, and opportunities, but not all of them are beneficial. Without spiritual alignment, you lack the discernment to separate what is urgent from what is important. You may spend the whole day investing energy into things that drain you while ignoring the instructions that would have brought progress. Alignment tunes your spiritual senses so that you are not merely reacting to circumstances, but responding to divine direction. It is alignment that makes your spirit sensitive enough to pick instructions from heaven before noise from the earth overwhelms you. The tragedy of many lives is not the absence of effort, but the absence of order. God is a God of order, and alignment restores divine order within a man. When your spirit is aligned, your thoughts become calmer, your decisions become clearer, and your actions become more intentional. Anxiety reduces not because problems disappear, but because direction has been received. Alignment gives you the confidence to move slowly when others are rushing, and the boldness to act decisively when others are hesitating. This is because alignment gives access to perspective, and perspective is what governs wisdom. Spiritual alignment also determines what has permission to influence you throughout the day. Whatever controls your spirit will eventually control your choices. If fear aligns you, the day will be ruled by caution and limitation. If pressure aligns you, the day will be governed by stress and compromise. But when your spirit is aligned with God, peace becomes the atmosphere, faith becomes the posture, and obedience becomes natural rather than forced. Alignment establishes authority because authority flows from submission. When you submit your spirit to God at the start of the day, creation recognizes that order has been restored and begins to cooperate. Many people ask God for help during the day without first giving him leadership over the day. Alignment is not asking God to bless your plans. It is surrendering your plans to be corrected. This is where transformation happens. You begin to see that some battles were unnecessary, some conversations were avoidable, and some delays were actually divine protection. Alignment saves you from emotional exhaustion because you are no longer fighting battles that were never assigned to you. It teaches you restraint, patience, and timing. There is also a strength that comes from alignment that physical rest cannot supply. When your spirit is aligned, even limited physical energy becomes productive. You may not do many things, but what you do produces results. This is because alignment attracts grace, and grace is the divine enablement that makes effort effective. Without grace, effort becomes struggle. With grace, effort becomes fruitful. Alignment is how grace is activated at the start of the day. Spiritual alignment also establishes spiritual boundaries. It defines what you will tolerate and what you will resist. When alignment is missing, emotions are easily hijacked, offenses find easy access, and distractions multiply. But when alignment is present, you carry an inner restraint that protects your focus. You are not easily provoked because your spirit is anchored. You are not easily distracted because your priorities are clear. You are not easily discouraged because your confidence is rooted in divine approval, not human validation. The quality of your day is a reflection of the state of your spirit. A disordered spirit produces a chaotic day, no matter how well planned the schedule appears. But when alignment is restored, even unexpected events are handled with wisdom and composure. You stop seeing interruptions as enemies and begin to recognize divine adjustments. Alignment trains your heart to trust God's orchestration rather than panic at changes. Before you step into conversations, decisions, labor, and movement, alignment must take place. It is alignment that gives meaning to motion and direction to energy. When your spirit is aligned, your day is no longer something you survive. It becomes something you steward. You are not merely passing through hours. You are fulfilling assignments. You are not reacting to life. You are participating in God's agenda for that day. Every day that unfolds carries within it the fingerprints of God. And before any activity commences, it is crucial to recognize that the day itself does not belong to you. It belongs to God. This acknowledgement is not just a ritual. It is a declaration of dependence, submission, and spiritual intelligence. Many people wake up thinking that the day is theirs to command, only to discover that the challenges, interruptions, and obstacles they face are results of trying to take control of what was never meant to be theirs. Recognizing God as the owner of the day is a spiritual principle that transforms how you approach every hour, every decision, and every relationship. It is the understanding that divine authority is the ultimate determinant of success, favor, and protection. When you acknowledge God as the owner of your day, you place yourself under the canopy of His supervision. You begin to operate from a posture of humility rather than pride, of faith rather than fear. You no longer rely solely on human wisdom, effort, or timing, because you understand that divine oversight governs outcomes. Every successful person in every era has operated under the principle that success is not merely the product of strategy, but the product of alignment with the divine will. Without this acknowledgement, effort becomes strenuous and directionless. Your hands may work, but your spirit is disconnected from the source of true fruitfulness. Acknowledgement of God's ownership is also an act of protection. When you declare that the day belongs to God, you invite His supervision over every interaction, encounter, and decision. Every road you walk, every conversation you engage in, and every plan you attempt is filtered through divine oversight. It is this acknowledgement that shields your life from unnecessary complications, accidents, misunderstandings, and failures. Many struggles in life come not because of lack of capability, but because of ignorance regarding God's authority over time and events. When you surrender the day to Him, divine guidance begins to dictate your steps, and many pitfalls are avoided before they even present themselves. This acknowledgement also activates favor. Favor is not a result of luck or coincidence. It is a product of recognizing and submitting to divine order. When God is acknowledged as the owner of your day, doors that human effort cannot open begin to swing wide. Opportunities that would have been invisible become apparent. People respond differently when divine favor presides over interactions. The marketplace, the office, the home, and every arena you step into begin to align with your purpose, because the unseen hand of God has been invited to orchestrate the events of your day. Favor amplifies effort, multiplies resources, and positions you strategically in every sphere of life. When you operate under the recognition that God owns the day, your mindset changes. You move from anxiety to assurance, from frustration to patience, from doubt to confidence. You understand that setbacks are not necessarily failures, but adjustments. You begin to interpret challenges with divine perspective, realizing that every situation is under control, not in spite of you, but in coordination with God's plan. This mindset, P, prevents impulsive decisions, rash actions, and emotional reactions that often sabotage progress. The acknowledgement of God as owner brings clarity to decisions and precision to actions. Moreover, acknowledging God as the owner of the day fosters obedience and spiritual sensitivity. It trains the heart to listen for instruction, the eyes to see divine cues, and the ears to hear wisdom from above. Every day carries unique assignments, and these assignments require awareness that can only come from a spirit attuned to God's ownership. Those who ignore this principle often miss appointments with destiny, labor in vain, and exhaust themselves without tangible results. Recognizing God as the authority over your time ensures that every activity you engage in has purpose, direction, and backing from heaven. There is also a spiritual dimension to acknowledging God as the owner of the day that affects relationships and encounters. You begin to act in ways that reflect divine principles, showing integrity, patience, and discernment in interactions. People notice a difference when someone operates under divine authority because there is an unexplainable calmness, confidence, and effectiveness in their actions. Your communication becomes purposeful, your decisions become aligned, and your influence expands without effort. When God is acknowledged as owner, his order manifests through you, and others experience the overflow of his supervision. Finally, recognizing God as the owner of your day changes the lens through which you view your responsibilities. Work, family, tasks, and challenges are no longer burdens, but opportunities for divine partnership. You understand that productivity, success, and peace are not based solely on human ability, but on participation with the divine plan. Each step is measured, each action is intentional, and each decision is undergirded by heavenly guidance, ensuring that the day does not merely pass, but produces results that align with eternal purposes. Prayer is not just a ritual, it is a declaration of authority over what the day will produce. Many people approach their mornings with hope, but without strategy, expecting circumstances to shape their outcomes rather than taking deliberate steps to influence what unfolds. When you learn to legislate your day through prayer, you move from being a passive observer of events to an active participant in the orchestration of your life. Prayer becomes the instrument through which divine intervention is invited into situations that would otherwise overwhelm human effort. It is not enough to predict what might happen. The believer is called to declare what must happen according to God's will. Declaring the day through prayer establishes spiritual parameters that shape every decision, interaction, and opportunity, ensuring that your energy and focus are invested in alignment with heaven's plan. Legislating outcomes through prayer begins with understanding authority. The believer has been given authority over darkness, delay, and deception. That authority is not theoretical. It is operational when exercised with faith. Every morning, before stepping into responsibilities, there is a spiritual mandate to release declarations that set the atmosphere of the day. Without this, one's life becomes vulnerable to confusion, fear, and unnecessary interference. Prayer is the act of speaking divine alignment into the day, of activating grace that shapes circumstances, according to God's wisdom, rather than human reasoning. It is an intentional engagement with the unseen realm to secure favor, protection, and direction. Many people assume that prayer is primarily for asking, but declaration is equally essential. When you declare the day in alignment with God's purpose, you are actively setting a legal precedent in the spiritual realm. This legal precedent influences how situations unfold. For example, declaring protection over your health, relationships, finances, and opportunities creates a spiritual boundary that circumstances must respect. Prayer is not a passive wish. It is a command issued from a place of partnership with God. When you pray with authority, you activate supernatural influence that reshapes natural outcomes. Those who do not pray often end up navigating their day by chance, reacting to events instead of shaping them. The act of declaring the day through prayer also enhances spiritual perception. When your spirit is engaged in intentional communication with God, you begin to perceive assignments, avoid hazards, and recognize opportunities that would be invisible otherwise. Prayer sharpens your spiritual senses and opens your heart to divine guidance. It becomes a lens through which you view reality, enabling you to distinguish between what aligns with God's plan and what does not. This discernment is what separates mediocrity from excellence, delay from progress, and confusion from clarity. Declaring the day ensures that your perception is calibrated to divine intelligence rather than merely human observation. Prayer, as a tool for legislating outcomes, also instills confidence. When you declare the day, you do so with the awareness that you are not alone, that the Creator who owns time and circumstances is actively intervening on your behalf. This knowledge eliminates fear, anxiety, and hesitation. You begin the day with a sense of purpose that is unshakable, knowing that your steps are ordered and that unseen forces are aligned in your favor. Confidence derived from prayer is not arrogance. It is assurance that accompanies alignment with heaven's authority. It allows you to act boldly, speak wisely, and navigate challenges with a calm spirit. Furthermore, legislating the day through prayer protects against spiritual and natural interference. Every day carries potential distractions, attacks, and obstacles that can derail progress. These are not always visible to the human eye, but through prayer, you create a spiritual shield that guards your mind, body, relationships, and endeavors. By speaking divine declarations over your circumstances, you are effectively closing doors to delay, blocking access to deception, and inviting favor and guidance. Prayer is an act of positioning your life under divine supervision, ensuring that what is meant for blessing cannot be stolen and what is meant for growth is not hindered. Daily declarations in prayer also cultivate consistency in spiritual authority. When you make it a habit to legislate your day, you train your spirit to recognize the patterns of divine engagement. Over time, your prayer life becomes a proactive mechanism that influences not just the immediate day, but the trajectory of your life. The declarations you make create momentum that aligns with God's long-term purposes, ensuring that temporary challenges do not dictate permanent outcomes. Each morning, the act of declaring the day reinforces your understanding of authority and deepens your partnership with God, transforming ordinary routines into extraordinary opportunities. Prayer that legislates outcomes is therefore not optional. It is strategic. It is the difference between a day that drifts and a day that produces, between a life that reacts and a life that directs, between a future shaped by chance and a destiny authored in alignment with heaven. Those who master this principle do not simply encounter success, they enforce it through the authority granted to them by the Creator. Light is more than just physical illumination. It is the revelation that guides understanding, decisions, and actions. Every day presents choices that can either advance your destiny or delay it. And without light, even the most well-intentioned actions can produce the wrong results. Activating light for direction and decisions means intentionally inviting divine insight into your day so that every step you take is informed, purposeful, and aligned with God's will. Many people move through life in darkness, relying on instinct, guesswork, or incomplete information, only to find that their effort yields frustration rather than fulfillment. Light dispels confusion, clarifies priorities, and empowers the believer to navigate complex situations with wisdom and discernment. The first principle of activating light is understanding that the natural senses are limited. Eyes can see the physical, ears can hear the audible, and the mind can process information based on past experiences. But life often requires insight that goes beyond the natural. The spiritual dimension provides access to guidance that the natural mind cannot conceive. When you activate light through prayer, meditation on the word, and spiritual awareness, you are tuning your perception to see beyond appearances and to recognize divine patterns that govern outcomes. Decisions made under this illumination carry authority and precision because they are informed by intelligence that transcends human understanding. Light is also essential for protection. Many setbacks, mistakes, and delays occur because people act in the absence of clarity. Without light, what appears harmless can be dangerous, and what seems insignificant can become a stumbling block. Activating light ensures that your steps are ordered and that hazards are recognized before they manifest. The principle is simple. Where there is no illumination, there is vulnerability. Where there is light, there is direction, safety, and discernment. Light functions as a guide through the invisible terrain of spiritual and natural forces, providing foresight that prevents wasted energy and unnecessary loss. Another aspect of activating light is its role in prioritization. Every day presents multiple tasks, responsibilities, and opportunities, but not everything is beneficial or aligned with your purpose. Light illuminates what is important and filters out what is distracting or counterproductive. Many people exhaust themselves chasing things that are irrelevant while ignoring assignments that carry eternal or long-term significance. When light guides your decisions, your efforts are multiplied because they are focused on the right areas. You move with precision rather than randomness, effectiveness rather than chaos, and strategy rather than reaction. Light also empowers discernment in relationships and communication. Human interaction is layered with intentions, emotions, and hidden agendas. Without light, it is easy to misinterpret motives, miss opportunities for collaboration, or fall into traps of manipulation. Activating light allows you to perceive the heart of situations, detect dishonesty, and recognize alignment or misalignment in every encounter. This insight prevents unnecessary conflict, accelerates trust where appropriate, and positions you to make relational decisions that advance your purpose. Light sharpens your spiritual senses so that you respond wisely rather than react impulsively. In addition, activating light enhances problem solving and creativity. Many decisions require insight, innovation, and unconventional thinking. Light reveals solutions that are invisible to those relying solely on experience or logic. When your mind and spirit are illuminated, ideas, strategies, and breakthroughs emerge that seem impossible to produce naturally. This principle explains why some people consistently find answers and opportunities where others see dead ends. It is not luck or coincidence. It is illumination that provides clarity, direction, and supernatural understanding. Light creates a mental and spiritual environment conducive to breakthrough and progress. Activating light also stabilizes your emotions and mindset. Confusion and uncertainty often produce fear, anxiety, and indecision. When light is present, doubt is minimized and confidence is strengthened. You operate with the assurance that you are moving in alignment with wisdom rather than being led by impulse or pressure. Emotional balance and mental clarity follow illumination because understanding removes the chaos that comes from ignorance. Light brings a sense of peace and composure. even in the midst of complex or challenging circumstances, because it ensures that decisions are informed and steps are purposeful. Finally, light is foundational to timing. Life is not just about movement, it is about moving at the right time. Many opportunities are missed because people act too early or too late, relying on human judgment rather than divine insight. Activating light tunes your perception to the rhythms of providence, allowing you to act with precision and seize moments that would otherwise pass unnoticed. Decisions become timely, actions become effective, and outcomes align with purpose, because illumination ensures that every step is guided by wisdom, clarity, and divine insight. Every day carries potential for progress, favor, and breakthrough, but it also carries potential for delay, attack, and frustration. Many people move through life unaware of the spiritual dynamics that influence the outcome of their days. What is not covered becomes vulnerable. And this is why covering the day against spiritual resistance is a principle of critical importance. Spiritual resistance manifests in many forms: unexpected obstacles, untimely attacks, confusion, misunderstanding, and opposition that appears without warning. These challenges are not always visible in the natural, but they exist in the spiritual realm. When a believer learns to cover the day through prayer, declaration, and alignment with God's authority, they establish a protective barrier that shields their purpose, progress, and peace. The first step in covering the day is understanding that spiritual resistance targets areas of influence. Every blessing, opportunity, or divine assignment has potential adversaries in the spiritual realm. These adversaries are not always overt. They often operate subtly to divert, delay, or distort outcomes. When you intentionally cover your day, you are actively engaging spiritual authority to neutralize interference. This is not passive hoping. It is active partnering with God to ensure that what is meant for your life cannot be stolen, delayed, or sabotaged. Spiritual resistance seeks to exploit gaps in awareness, gaps that can be closed by deliberate prayer and declaration. Covering the day also involves recognizing the power of alignment and authority. When you operate under divine order, you are not merely shielding yourself from random opposition. You are enforcing the supremacy of God's purpose over every assignment of your life. Authority is exercised through spoken declarations, faith-filled petitions, and conscious submission to God's oversight. These actions create a spiritual perimeter that deters interference. What is not covered is exposed because vulnerability invites attacks that can affect health, relationships, finances, and personal effectiveness. Protection begins with awareness and is solidified through intentional spiritual engagement. Another dimension of covering the day is consistency. Spiritual resistance is persistent, often testing boundaries at multiple points throughout the day. It seeks to exploit every moment of distraction, every lapse in focus, and every failure to exercise authority. When you consistently cover your day, you are not leaving openings for compromise or delay. Morning declarations, prayer, meditation on the word, and conscious acknowledgement of God's oversight form a routine that fortifies your spirit. This routine trains your mind and heart to recognize potential attacks and respond from a place of authority rather than panic or fear. Coverage is about establishing patterns of protection that remain effective even when circumstances attempt to change. Covering the day also strengthens resilience. When spiritual resistance is present, it often brings pressure, confusion, or opposition that tests patience and faith. Properly covering the day equips you to navigate these challenges with composure and wisdom. You become less reactive to interference because your spiritual shield has already been activated. Resistance may attempt to slow progress, but coverage ensures that delays do not become derailments and obstacles do not become permanent barriers. By covering your day, you create a framework where challenges serve as checkpoints for divine adjustment rather than traps for defeat. Spiritual resistance also seeks to target the mind and emotions. Doubt, fear, anxiety, and discouragement are common instruments through which resistance operates. When the day is covered, these intrusions lose their power because it is fortified and your focus is anchored in God's authority. The mind becomes disciplined, the heart becomes steadfast, and your emotions are stabilized by the awareness that divine supervision presides over the entire day. Coverage is not about denial of challenges. It is about ensuring that challenges do not dictate your response or hijack your progress. Relationships A. Endy interactions are another area where covering the day has significant impact. Conflicts, misunderstandings, and hidden agendas often arise in the natural as manifestations of spiritual resistance. When you cover the day, you are effectively inviting divine intervention into these relationships, ensuring that communication flows with clarity, discernment, and favor. Protection extends to those you interact with as well, as God's guidance enables you to engage without falling into traps of offense, manipulation, or error. The day becomes a controlled environment where purpose is preserved and interference is neutralized. Finally, covering the day ensures continuity of progress. Spiritual resistance often attempts to disrupt momentum, steal opportunities, and create setbacks. By actively covering your day, you maintain a trajectory that aligns with divine intention. This proactive approach ensures that what is meant to manifest in your life is not interrupted, delayed, or distorted by opposition. Coverage transforms ordinary mornings into spiritual fortresses where productivity, peace, and purpose can flourish unchallenged, and where your steps are guided by authority rather than chance. Every day presents opportunities, challenges, and demands, but the energy required to navigate them effectively is not always found in the physical realm alone. Grace is the supernatural enablement that empowers the believer to function beyond natural capacity, and receiving grace for strength and efficiency at the start of the day is a principle that transforms ordinary efforts into extraordinary outcomes. Many people expend effort relying solely on human energy, only to discover fatigue, frustration, and diminished results. Spiritual grace provides the reserve, wisdom, and strength needed to accomplish assignments, overcome obstacles, and maximize productivity without being drained by pressure or circumstance. The first aspect of receiving grace is understanding that human effort alone is limited. Talent, knowledge, and experience can carry a person only so far. There are situations that require insight, creativity, endurance, and resilience that exceed natural ability. Grace intervenes to fill these gaps. When you begin your day by seeking and receiving God's grace, you position yourself to operate in alignment with divine enablement rather than human limitation. Tasks that would normally overwhelm are accomplished efficiently, decisions are made wisely, and relationships are navigated with discernment. Grace amplifies the capacity of the believer so that productivity is enhanced and effort is multiplied. Receiving grace also ensures sustainability. Many people begin their day with enthusiasm but find themselves depleted before the day ends. This is often the result of operating without spiritual enablement. Grace provides stamina that is not dependent on sleep, nutrition, or external circumstances alone. It sustains the mind, strengthens the will, and invigorates the spirit. When grace is active in your life, energy is replenished continually. Challenges are met with resilience, and the pressure of responsibilities does not lead to burnout. The believer learns to function at peak capacity, not by their own strength, but by the empowerment that flows from God. Grace also enhances efficiency. It is one thing to be busy, it is another to be productive. Many people confuse activity with accomplishment, expending time and energy without tangible results. Grace directs focus, sharpens priorities, and aligns actions with purpose so that effort produces maximum impact. The assignments of the day are completed in a manner that reflects both competence and divine enablement. Tasks that would normally require struggle are accomplished with clarity and ease. Grace introduces an element of acceleration, allowing the believer to achieve more in less time, ensuring that every moment of effort contributes to meaningful progress. Another dimension of grace is its ability to foster discernment in decision-making. Every day presents choices that can either advance or hinder progress. Natural reasoning is limited by perspective, experience, and information available, but grace provides insight that exceeds the boundaries of human understanding. With grace, decisions are guided by wisdom, intuition, and divine instruction. The believer can navigate complex situations, negotiate challenges, and seize opportunities with confidence because grace illuminates the right path. This supernatural guidance ensures that effort is not wasted and that actions are consistently aligned with favorable outcomes. Grace also strengthens relationships and interactions. Many of the challenges people face in daily life arise from misunderstandings, conflicts, or miscommunications. When grace is received at the start of the day, the believer is empowered to respond with patience, humility, and wisdom. Conversations become productive, conflicts are diffused, and influence is maximized because grace enables the individual to operate beyond natural tendencies of impatience, frustration, or bias. The presence of grace in interactions creates an environment where cooperation, understanding, and favor are naturally cultivated. In addition, grace protects against spiritual and natural attacks. Every day carries potential opposition that can manifest as fatigue, distraction, emotional disturbance, or external conflict. Grace functions as a buffer, providing strength to resist temptation, endurance to withstand pressure, and clarity to overcome confusion. It reinforces spiritual authority, ensuring that the believer can exercise dominion over circumstances rather than being dominated by them. This protective aspect of grace is essential for sustaining focus, maintaining composure, and achieving results despite challenges. Finally, receiving grace at the beginning of the day aligns the believer with divine timing and purpose. Grace is not merely a response to human effort. It is a partnership with God's supernatural orchestration. It enables the believer to recognize opportunities, execute assignments, and achieve breakthroughs in ways that reflect both diligence and divine favor. When grace presides over the day, the believer experiences a flow where effort is effective, decisions are precise, and outcomes exceed expectation. The day is no longer navigated by chance or struggle, but by empowerment, efficiency, and divine enablement that positions every action for maximum impact.